Hey, Humo soldiers. I'd like to thank everybody who read issue 1 of Misanthropology e-magazine. As many of you are aware, issue 2 has been released. For you true crime buffs, there's an article about necrophilia, which includes the story of famous British serial killer and necrophile Dennis Nilsen. Bon appetit! Speaking of the British, the 1980s era children's pop act, the Mini Pops, are featured as an article. The Mini Pops featured little girls wearing miniskirts and putty knife makeup, so it was a little sleazy. Oh, and for those of you who are not aware of my little viral moment, I shot some footage on public transit one day of a woman shaving her pubes. The video has become quite notorious, and I detail the story in this issue, which includes the reaction from actor and comedian Michael Rapaport. Due to his TikTok duet, the video has been seen by over 51,000 people from his account alone. Rapaport was not as amused as I was.
Nah, see, people say if you see something, say something. Say something! This is not acceptable!
There are other articles about the immoral, the illegal, and the downright weird events and phenomena that only the human race in its dubious glory has to offer. The issue is available for sale at www.misanthropology, that's misanthropology.store. You can download a PDF of the issue there. Thank you very much and enjoy the show. Welcome to Human Monsters. This episode deals with a tragedy that occurred on September 15th, 1989. I will read a news article about the case to fill you in on the details. It was published by AP News on September 14th, 1994. Fort Worth, Texas. Amy Lynn Thatcher's regular walk to school ended when she was abducted by Preacher's son, who had been paroled from prison only 9 months earlier, his second time on parole. Kenneth Reed Smith was captured the next day and led police to Amy's partially clad body. The 14-year-old had been strangled with a shoelace pulled from her high-top sneaker. Police found one end of the lace tied around her neck and the other attached to a low tree branch. Jurors convicted Smith, 25, of capital murder in the September 15, 1989 kidnapping, rape, and strangulation. Sentenced to life in prison, he again becomes eligible for parole in 2034. To help cope with their daughter's death, Mary and Terry Thatcher fought for changes in the Texas criminal justice system, especially related to paroles. They gave then-Governor Bill Clements petitions with almost 80,000 signatures asking for stricter laws to keep violent offenders behind bars. Clements declined to put the issue on the agenda of the next special legislative session. But the Thatchers also kept up the pressure on state officials, and in 1993, a crime amendment to the Texas Constitution, sponsored on their behalf, won legislative and voter approval. Mrs. Thatcher said, "It's helped us with our grief. We feel like we have done something and her death is not totally in vain." The amendment gives judges the option of denying bail to people charged with violent or sexual crimes committed while on probation, parole, or mandatory supervision for a prior felony. Smith first went to prison in March 1987 after an auto theft conviction. He was soon released, but returned in March 1988 for a parole violation. He won parole a second time that December. The following January, he was arrested in connection with an attack on a woman. 2 months before Amy's death, officials dropped a new parole violation charge, and he got out on reduced bail, although he was awaiting trial on a charge of aggravated sexual assault. When he was arrested in Amy's death, Smith also was being sought on a warrant accusing him of the August 1989 attack on a 13-year-old girl who said Smith raped her in the basement of his father's church. Jurors convicted Smith of both aggravated sexual assaults, sentencing him to life in prison for one and 55 years for the other. The Thatchers, meanwhile, still mourned the loss of their eldest child, who weighed only 3 pounds and 14 3/4 of an ounce when she was born a week early. Mrs. Thatcher said, "It's kind of strange that way. I know she struggled to live and struggled in death." I interviewed Amy Thatcher's brother Damon about how the tragedy affected his life, as well as those of his parents, brother, and the surrounding community. I apologize for the audio on his end. The recording wasn't as vibrant as it was on my end, though his voice can be clearly understood. All right, Damon, thank you very much for doing the interview. I know this is not a subject that's easy for you to talk about. It wouldn't be easy for anybody, because it deals with someone you were very close to. Obviously, your sister, Amy Lynn Thatcher. For those of the audience who are not aware of this case, it all is based on something that happened a very long time ago in 1989. Amy Lynn Thatcher is Damon Thatcher Sr.'s sister, and the family suffered a tragedy a long time ago. It was on September 15th, 1989. But before I get into that aspect of the story, where I'm going to start, Damon, is what kind of community was your family living in at the time? Were you safe? Was it like a middle class environment?
Yeah, it was pretty middle class. We had to walk to school. Yeah, school was pretty close. It was pretty easy.
So it was not the kind of
pretty safe.
So yeah, it was not the kind of place like an inner city neighborhood where there was violence around, where people had to worry about their kids.
No, not really. No, it was pretty comfortable.
And how about your family in particular? So were you middle class? What kind of situation was your family living in?
Yeah, my dad was a dock loader at the time, and my mom was working making envelopes.
Oh yeah, so you're a working class family.
Yeah.
All right, and how about her relationship to the rest of the family? So Amy's relationship to the rest of the family. Were you guys close? Was it a happy situation?
Yeah, she fed me and my little brother and took care of us while mom and dad were working after school. And when mom and dad got home, she had dinner ready for them.
Oh, so was she the oldest of the children?
Yes. Yes, I was a middle child.
Oh yeah. So yeah, that often happens with the oldest child when the parents are away for long periods of time. Was it something that she was comfortable with in terms of looking after the other kids, or did she find that difficult juggling that with school and everything else?
No, she was really good at it. Dinner was made every day at 6 o'clock, and mom and dad would get home around 7. She always did her best.
Okay.
I thought she did a good job.
So you feel like she was probably going to be a good mother if she had decided to take that route in life?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. She was really loving and caring, and she did her best to make sure that we were always happy.
And was it difficult for you and the other... So how many kids were there, by the way?
My little brother, and my older sister. There was three of us.
So you and your younger brother, did you resent the fact that she would be the boss when the parents were not around? Did you ever chafe against that?
Not really, because she was bigger than me.
Oh, is that right? Oh, okay. So
Yeah, she was bigger than me, so she always had command.
oh, that's good then. And what kind of personality did she have? So we've mentioned, she was a strong person. She could be a leader. She had the potential to look after children, even if they were her siblings. What else do you feel people should know about what kind of person she was?
She didn't want to see you upset. She always loved to see us smile.
And
She was always happy.
was that something that extended to her friends as well?
Yeah, yeah. She always took care of her friends. She played with kids who didn't get played with. And she was really outgoing and loving. And
what were her hopes or dreams or aspirations? When she, what kind of career did she want to work in?
She was really, I'm not for sure, but I think she probably would have gone into home care, most likely, because she volunteered at the nursing home, and she'd dance and sing and play with those older people.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
She volunteered a lot of places. She went to the library and read to the kids, and she did a lot of things.
Wow.
So she volunteered at the old folks' home, kept the older folks entertained, and she volunteered her time a lot to a lot of different places.
So she really wanted to make a difference in the world.
Yeah, she was well on her way to making a difference.
All right. So now we get to, this is the hard part, the story of the tragedy that we're going to deal with today. So I downloaded a news article about it. It's a very old piece. This was published in 1994, actually. So I'm going to go through each detail and we'll unpack it all bit by bit. So the first paragraph goes, Amy Lynn Thatcher's regular walk to school ended when she was abducted by a preacher's son, who had been paroled from prison only 9 months earlier, his second time on parole. So there are people who feel like this guy shouldn't have been paroled, right? He was kind of he was a bad seed. He had already, didn't he have a history of violence?
Yeah, his history of violence started back when he was 7.
Wow.
He beat up the mailman with a baseball bat.
He beat up an adult with a baseball bat.
Yes.
Damn. So did they ever find out if he was mentally ill, or is he just a bad seed, as I was saying?
Probably just a bad seed. I couldn't tell you. I was only 11, so
yeah.
There's a lot that I didn't understand at the time. But as I've gotten older, I've come to realize that some people are just bad.
It's true. Well, I mean, it's really unexpected that he could be a preacher's son and yet end up committing these terrible crimes.
Now, I wouldn't believe that could happen, but I guess it does.
Yeah, I suppose maybe, when kids rebel, they usually rebel in a way that, in terms of behaving in ways that their parents would not approve of, doing things they would not do. So maybe there is something about having those expectations as the son of a preacher placed on you, and maybe he was sort of rebelling against that. I mean, I'm just taking a shot in the dark here, but...
Well, I rebelled against my parents when I was a child, and I told my dad if he thinks he's big and bad enough to go ahead and hit me, and then I remember waking up in the floor, and that was the last time that happened.
Yeah, so maybe this guy's parents just were too soft on him,
Well, I was 15 when I thought I was man enough to challenge my dad, and that was incorrect.
Yeah.
So lesson learned from that one.
Was the family situation influenced by the culture of the South? Because it seems to me like parenting is different down there, right? Isn't it a little more old school?
Yeah. If you do wrong, you get punished pretty quickly. My parents, when I was growing up, their friends had the right to spank me.
Their friends, really?
So
Wow.
yeah. So I was used to being corrected on all of my incorrections, or all the dumb things that I thought I was going to get away with.
And oh, sorry, go on. Yeah.
No, I never got away with anything. I always got in trouble.
And you guys are from Texas, right?
Yes.
And
Fort Worth.
Fort Worth. Okay. And you still live there?
No, we live in Granbury. It's a little southwest of Fort Worth now.
Oh, okay.
We moved out here after Amy was abducted, and Mom and Dad tried to get us away from that situation.
Oh, okay.
And that was a culture shock in itself. I went from being, my little brother and I, 2 of 7 white kids in a class, to we moved out to Granbury. There was 2 black kids in the whole school.
Wow. Yeah.
No Oriental people, nothing like that. It was all white people.
Not that I'm putting any special emphasis on race, but was
No,
yeah.
Race doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
had
it's
a
true.
lot of black friends when I was in school.
Oh no, it
in
was.
Fort Worth.
I don't have a description of Kenneth Reed Smith. Was he a white guy or a black guy or?
No, he was a black guy.
So
He was a black guy.
did race factor into it at all, or was he just?
I think he just picked the target and took advantage of the situation.
Oh, okay. Did she had she had boyfriends before all this happened?
Yeah, actually, she was dating a black guy.
Oh, really? And
And he was cool. He would take my little brother and I for bike rides, and we'd ride all over Fort Worth for hours. And then we'd get home, and Amy would have us something to eat. She'd make us take a bath, and then we'd have something to eat. And naturally, we're tired, so we'd go to bed.
and with her being such a strong person, was she the type who would put up with abusive behavior in a relationship?
I don't believe so.
No.
Not at all. But then again, like I was only 11. I didn't really know anything about relationships at that time.
Yeah, that's true. And she was, so I'm getting into the really hard details here now. So when she was found, a shoelace had been pulled from her sneaker, and that was used as a ligature, and so she was strangled. One end was tied around her neck, and the other was attached to a low tree branch. So this was a particularly sadistic approach to ending her life. And so Smith was convicted of capital murder, kidnapping, rape, and strangulation. So what was the experience like to find out not only that your sister was murdered, but it was murdered in such a callous and sadistic way? Like, does that really make it worse to contemplate the whole thing?
The fact that she's gone is hard enough, but the fact that he was cowardice and how he killed her, that's kind of upsetting.
Mm-hmm.
He could have chose a better way to end her life. He let her slowly choke herself to death instead of killing her himself. I think that was callous and cheap.
Absolutely. Did he ever state a motive for what drove him to do this?
As far as I know, no. But then again, I wasn't allowed to hear all the details because I was so young.
Oh, I see, yeah.
He smiled at me in court one day.
He smiled at you in court. Wow.
Yeah. And I tried to get over the railing because I was angry. And they escorted me out of there, and I wasn't allowed to come back.
Wow.
I was at his hearing a couple of times, but when he smiled at me, I couldn't take that.
Yeah, I can imagine how you feel. There's a video I saw on YouTube. It was about like outbursts in court, and this father was talking to the guy who killed his daughter, and the guy, he started smiling at him, and the father just jumped on him, like the whole courtroom just erupted. I mean, the arrogance of smiling at him, even with the judge sitting there. I mean, this is no matter what.
It was devastating. It was devastating that he thought he could smile at me.
Did he ever?
I lost it.
Did he ever make any statements to the effect of, like, he doesn't regret it or he feels good about it?
Again, I wasn't allowed to hear any of the details on that, but I would believe that he probably don't regret it. He was on probation for assault on another woman, and he assaulted another woman while he was on probation before he kidnapped Amy. So I would imagine he feels no remorse.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it. This is pathological behavior.
He might feel remorse now, being 33 years locked up. I've heard a lot of stories of his situation in jail. I'm not going to go into that right now, but he got his, and he's going to keep getting his.
Well, considering that he did it to a minor, I mean, that puts you at a pretty low position in the pecking order in prison.
Right.
Because basically,
He's going to continue to get what you get for being a child murderer.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Child rape or killer.
Do you know if they've put him in protective custody?
From what I understand, he now has his own little piece of field to work in, his own shower time. He is in solitary confinement because he can't be left alone with the rest of the inmates.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can see why. And so, yeah, one thing that your parents, Mary and Terry, they fought to introduce new changes in the Texas criminal justice system when it came to paroles. And I understand the first time they put a petition together, which contained 80,000 signatures, and the purpose of it was to ask the state to introduce stricter laws to keep violent offenders behind bars. And the governor, Bill Clements, rejected it. Right? He wouldn't even introduce it.
Yeah, he said that it had no merit or something to that effect.
See, that's odd. It's odd to me because, like, for instance, I know that in the Texas Penal Code, like, just rape alone could get you up to 20 years. I mean, Texas is a pretty tough and unforgiving justice system, but maybe it was different back then.
I would have to say it was, because now we have the Amber Hagerman law, and that's why we all get updates and notifications when somebody comes up missing. Amy's law is the one that laid down the foundation for the Amber Hagerman law.
And so, yeah, after your parents put more pressure on state officials, in 1993 they finally amended the Texas Constitution to update the system so that judges could reject parole on their own. I understand they don't necessarily need a jury if they feel that an offender should not be free because they pose a risk to the community. They can make that decision on their own.
Yes, that's one of the laws that they helped change.
And
they changed a few laws, but that's one of the most important ones that they changed.
And your mom said, it's helped us with our grief. We feel like we have done something, and her death is not totally in vain. Did it help with your grief?
Not really, because I was young and didn't really understand what was going on. Now that I'm older, it does make me feel a little better, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's not enough. I mean, it's not like it brings her back or anything.
Yeah, nothing's going to bring her back. But it does make me feel better to know that children are not going to be as likely to be assaulted by a criminal.
Yes, and it says that this particularly applies to people charged with violent or sexual crimes while they're on probation. I mean, if you stole a car and you were on probation and you got into a stolen car, they'd throw you right back in jail. So what? I don't see why they shouldn't be able to do it when it comes to a rapist or a murderer.
I now that I'm older, I believe in hangings, and I think a public hanging of a rapist would kind of set an example. Hang on a second.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that was Danae trying to call me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and this guy had quite a record, so he really had no business being out in public.
No, it's my belief after the second time he went to the pen, he probably shouldn't have got out. I mean, he'd already assaulted 2 women before, and then they let him out again, and he assaulted more.
Oh, yeah.
No, he should have not been free.
Yeah, that's right. Like in 1988, he was paroled a second time in December, and then in January he was arrested for attacking a woman. So, like, I don't even know if a month passed before he did it all over again.
Yeah, and he was on drugs when he kidnapped Amy. They found that he was on cocaine and alcohol and other drugs. I just know that he was on cocaine and alcohol for a fact. So he was in a drug-influenced rage against America, I guess.
Yeah, and you're not supposed to, take any drugs or alcohol when you're on probation. I know that.
No, they can put you back in jail for that.
Absolutely. And then, then there was a whole other attack that he committed. There was already a warrant, like before what happened with Amy, there was a warrant for his arrest because in August of 1989, he attacked a 13-year-old girl in the basement of his own father's church.
At knife point. That's
knife point.
Yeah, the news left that out of it. And I thought that should have been left in there because it was at knife point. He took her in his dad's basement of his church and raped her at knife point.
God damn it.
What kind of grown man does that?
Yeah, that's sick. That's just evil. I remember when I was a kid, I knew kids who were evil. Just because you're a child doesn't mean you're incapable of doing horrible things.
No, I used to hang out, when we moved to Granbury, I used to hang out with some kids that I thought were cool until we caught a bunch of frogs and they decided that it was going to be fun to smash them against the wall, a brick wall, and I stopped hanging out with those guys. That is not my view on life.
Well, yeah, it's just...
That's not entertaining to me.
It's just cruelty, plain and simple.
Yeah, just plain and simple cruelty, and I'm not that kind of person. I never have been.
And so he was convicted of 2 aggravated sexual assaults, and they sentenced him to life in prison for one of them, and 55 years for the other. Was Amy's 55 years?
Yeah, I believe so.
All right. And when is her birthday?
Her birthday is September 15th.
Oh, wow, so that's very...
No, I'm sorry. No, her birthday is in March 26th.
Oh, the incident happened in September, right?
Yeah, September 15th is when it happened.
Oh, wow.
March 26th is her birthday.
So that's an anniversary just 2 days ago. Is that day really hard for your family?
Not so much for my mom and dad, but for me and my little brother, It's really hard. Maybe mom and dad learned how to cope with it better than we have, but my little brother and I still struggle with it every year.
So so it's like that day comes, and then you got to go to work. You got to do all the normal things a human being
I
does.
still got to go to work and do what everybody else does.
How do you keep it together? Like, how do you keep your mind off of it?
My mind's on it every day. I never wake up and not think about it.
And
so I've just learned to deal with the thought that it's never going to be the same.
And is it even harder on her birthday?
Yes. It I don't get to celebrate with her no more, but I still celebrate her birthday. Mom makes a cake every year, and we still have cake every year. We just in memory of,
Yeah.
Never forget.
Do you think?
Let's not forget Amy Lynn Thatcher.
Do you think she's the kind of person who would have forgiven him for what he did? What's his name again? Kenneth Reed Smith. Yeah. Do you think that she was the kind of person who would have it in her to forgive him if she were around?
She is. She is that. She was that kind of person. I'm not. Personally, I believe he could rot in hell for the rest of his life, and hopefully he does. But as far as she goes, yeah, she was very loving and forgiving, and she probably would understand why he did it. I don't, but she might have.
Now, his family, the Smith family, have they reached out to your family, or do they feel like he was innocent? Like, what was their approach to the situation?
Honestly, I blocked out most of it, but they might have tried to contact my parents, but they never talk about it. I can't say for sure that they did, but I mean, if it was my parents and they had to deal with their son doing something like that, my parents would have contacted them. So, being church people, maybe they did, but I don't know.
Do you have kids of your own?
I do.
And
I have a little girl and a little boy. They're both in their 20s now.
Oh, they are, eh? And so how did you handle the task of explaining what happened to Amy and how it's affected the family?
They know that it happened. They don't know all the details because nobody wants to talk about that. But how do I answer that? They understood why I wouldn't let them roam the streets alone.
Mm-hmm.
It was hard for me to tell them and help them to understand it, but they got the point. You don't just take off and walk around anywhere.
Yeah.
Because nowhere's safe.
Yeah.
Nowhere is safe.
Yeah. Did the murder did it change you in other ways besides that?
What do you mean?
In terms of like you just mentioned, like you're wary of what your kids would do, where they would go. Are there other ways? Like, for instance, did it change your viewpoint on the world, on people in general?
It helped me to understand that just because you think you're safe, you might not be. I know that when I go into the gas station, I'm trying to have an experience that's okay, but I do look over my shoulder. I do pay attention to everybody and everything around me. It's hard to just walk out and know that everything's going to be okay because there's always a chance.
And one thing that just occurred to me that must have been a serious speed bump, so to speak, is like when your daughter turned 14. What was that year like for you? Like to think, oh my God, I hope she's safe. I hope none of that happens to her. Like, did that occur to you at the time? Were you especially protective of her at that age?
Not really, because I had taught her self-defense from 3 on up till then. My daughter can kick my butt.
Yeah, is that right?
So I wasn't too worried about it, but I always made sure she had friends with her when she wanted to leave.
Do you think you would have been a different kind of parent if Amy had not suffered that attack?
I really can't say.
Mm-hmm.
I really can't say. I feel strongly for my children, and I don't know. I might have been a little bit lenient or a little bit easier on them,
Mm-hmm.
but no, I was always pretty strict with them anyway.
Are either of them like Amy at all, like in terms of their personality?
No, and that's probably because they never got to experience her kind of love.
Yeah.
She had a different kind of love. She had a deeper bond with people than I ever could imagine.
And
She gave her love more freely than I could ever give my love.
so she was a very trusting kind of person, is that correct?
Yes, she was very giving with her love.
And how about the impact on your parents? Obviously, losing your own child, that's one of the most devastating experiences that can happen to a human being. How long did it take them to get to a point where they could manage their grief and get on with life?
Oh man. Naturally, we all still grieving, but as far as managing it, I'm gonna say a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah, well, it's something that can kill a marriage. Sometimes, the relationship doesn't hold together after that.
Well, it actually pulled us closer.
Oh, did I?
Yeah. We love each other more now than we ever have.
And how about your brother? How did he cope with it?
Oh, horribly. It's still killing him. He chose a different route than I did. He don't have the same work ethics I do. He don't. He's antisocial.
Mm-hmm.
More like an introvert. He don't trust anybody. He's got major trust issues, and it's hard for him to, I guess, deal with day to day.
So it would be really hard for him to do an interview like this.
Yeah, I don't think he'd be able to make it. I would love for him to try, but I don't think that he would be able to do it. The thoughts and the memories just overwhelming.
Well, I mean, it's hard enough to lose a sibling, but from the sounds of it, Amy was almost like a second mother, right?
Oh, she was absolutely a second mother. I told you Danae was trying to call. She was like 7, and her dad used to be an alcoholic, or was an alcoholic, and Amy would go feed her and her little sister because he would be drunk and sleeping and couldn't take care of his own kids. So Amy would go over there after feeding us and feed them. Amy was the most awesome girl you could have ever known.
Yeah, it's such a horrible thing that people like that seem to be targeted more than other people.
I don't understand what it is. It's the glow, I guess, the spirit in their eyes,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a target for bad people. They look for the happiness and they try to kill it.
And they interpret they interpret kindness as weakness.
Well, Kenneth has 3 scratches on his face that'll never go away.
Oh yeah, so she fought back then.
Oh yeah, she fought back. She took three fingernails to his let's see, left side of his face. He's got 3 scars that'll never go away. He's scarred for life, and I'm glad.
Yep. Every time he looks in the mirror, he's gonna see her and remember that she did that to him.
He's gonna remember that he was in the wrong, and she was trying to let him know, you're wrong.
Did your parents teach her to be strong and to not take any crap from anybody?
Yes, absolutely. I can recall one time I was, being the older brother of my little brother, I was beating my little brother up, and she was doing laundry. So to stop the fight, she took a pair of open fly blue jeans and smacked me in the face with them. Several times it took, but I finally was like, ow, okay, I'll quit. She was very strong. Very strong-willed, strong-minded, beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
She was an amazing person.
And how about her funeral, her memorial service? Was that very well attended? Did a lot of people show up?
We shut down. I know you're not from Texas, but we have Interstate 820, or the Loop 820. We shut down the Loop for almost an hour.
Wow.
The graveside services, we were there, had our services, and were leaving, and there were still cars pulling in to show the respects.
So
there were still cars coming.
So did that represent people throughout the community who she had worked with, volunteered with, and wanted
everybody she'd ever touched, met, gotten to know, everybody. It was standing room only at the church services, and
wow.
we had a huge church that donated their church for us.
So this is like hundreds of people.
No, thousands.
Thousands, really.
Thousands of people.
Wow. And
the graveside services lasted almost an hour, and there were still people pulling in, trying to get parked just to see where she was going to spend the rest of her life.
And did their words help you and your family at all when they were paying tribute to her?
They helped Mom and Dad. Me, I was emotionally cut off because I thought that it was my fault. Amy and I had gotten into a fight the night before. On the 14th, we got into a fight, and I told her I hated her and I wish she'd die. So the 15th came around, and I woke up. I told her I was sorry, and I didn't mean it, and I don't feel good. I want you to stay home. And being the big sister, knowing that she has to get me to go to school, she made me and my little brother go to school. Told me everything's okay. I'll be here when you get home. Don't worry about it. So emotionally, I thought I'd wish that on her. Mm-hmm. So I cut myself off from all feeling. I didn't cry for 3 years. Did not cry, not one tear. I thought it was my fault. So
it took that long for you to figure out how to grieve.
It took me it took one doctor. His name was Dr. Hellwig, and his unorthodox method of talking to victims is what made me open up to him. The state paid for me to go to counseling till I was 19 because I was destroyed. And so was my little brother. But that one doctor finally got me opened up to talk to him, and I finally cried. And since then, I haven't been able to stop crying.
Was he able to convince you that, you have no accountability for what happened to her? That there's no connection between what you said and what you felt at, during that time and what ended up happening to her?
No, I finally came to that realization when I was in my 20s, mid-20s. I finally realized that it wasn't my fault. I didn't make that happen. That was the choice of another human, and I had nothing to do with it. I finally realized it wasn't my fault.
Well, that's good then. And I think, from what you've told me, she probably realizes that you didn't mean what you said. You did tell her, and she wouldn't want you. I don't imagine she'd want you to suffer all that time, would she?
No. She would want me to have been okay with it from day one.
Mm-hmm.
It happened. I'm gonna have to deal with it. Just move on. But I really thought it was my fault. For the longest time in my life, I thought it was my fault.
Did your parents ever have feelings of guilt? Like, I know sometimes fathers feel like, well, it was my duty to protect my child, and I couldn't be there. But of course, there was nothing he could have done, I guess. But did they ever experience those feelings?
I'm sure they do. We don't do a whole lot of talking about it, just because it is so hard for us to, talk. But I'm pretty sure. I don't think they ever felt guilty. They might have felt unprepared.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then again, how do you prepare for something like that to happen?
Well, you just can't, because it came out of the blue like that.
Yeah.
And how about the rest of your family, like your extended family? Did it affect them as well? Like grandparents and...
Actually, I didn't know that my dad had a stepmom. I thought that my nanny was my nanny until it happened, and then my dad's mom, real mom, showed up a few days later, and then I finally met his real mom, and that was awkward because I'd never met her before. So maybe it was. I'm not sure what that whole story was about, but she was never in our life before, and then now she wanted to be in our life, and Dad told her to leave. So you were never here before, now you want to try to be here? No. As far as my grandparents go, they were devastated, obviously. My aunts and uncles, devastated. The whole family was devastated because she was such a loving person, and nobody could believe or wanted to believe that it happened. But it happened, and I think one of my cousins had to take a little bit of counseling because she was really good friends with my sister.
And are you in the habit of so every time there's some kind of watershed moment in your life where something significant happens, maybe it's like a personal achievement, do you always think of how Amy would react to it, or do you fantasize about her being there?
I don't know about fantasizing about it, but yeah, when my daughter was born, I would have loved to have seen her reaction.
Yeah, it sounds like she would have been a great aunt to have. Did she wish to have a family someday?
She was still learning about life, but I think she said something one time about wanting to have kids.
Mm-hmm.
I think I remember talking one time about it. Her and her girlfriends were having a slumber party, and they were talking about growing up and having kids. So.
Oh yeah, and now obviously one thing that can arise in these situations, in terms of how the family reacts, is anger. Obviously, I'm sure you and your brother and your parents. I'm sure you were all angry. Where did your anger take you? Like, were you angry at the world?
Found drugs.
You found drugs?
I found drugs at a young age. I found drugs at a young age, younger than any child should ever find them. I was 11 years old when I tried marijuana. I was 13 years old when I tried methamphetamines. I was also 13 when I tried cocaine. Nothing ever took the pain away.
Yeah, you were looking for that escape.
The pain was always there. I was looking for an escape. I wanted to make the pain go away, and nothing ever worked. I did get sober. I do drink now. I don't drink like I used to, but I do drink, and I still smoke marijuana. The marijuana is for medical and for mental help. The alcohol is just to kill the pain of all the hard work that I've done through the years. I've done a lot of hard work. My body is pretty tore up. My little brother is still on drugs. Probably will never quit. I get on to him all the time about it, but that's his way of dealing with it, I guess. I've learned to move on. I'm cutting back on my drinking. I don't drink as much as I used to because it's taking its toll on my body.
And how about your parents? Are they resentful, or are they bitter about it? Where did their anger take them?
Actually, they both got sober,
mm-hmm.
and they decided they wanted to do something better with their life, and they moved forward. They have a house on 4 acres. We now have a little sister. She's 23, I think. She lives on the property with them. She has a daughter. I think she's 10 now. We're just trying to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
No looking back. You look back, you get upset again. So we always try to look forward.
Have they set aside a space in the house to kind of memorialize Amy? Is there did they keep her room, or what do they do?
The whole house is a memorial. The whole house. She's everywhere. There's pictures and little articles of clothing, and this is what she wore on this date with this guy, and they remember the good times. They try not to remember the bad. So they've got good memories of Amy everywhere.
When I was in high school, there was a student who passed away, and he hadn't yet graduated. Did her school do anything to commemorate the occasion?
They planted a tree that is still out front.
Oh yeah.
The school donated a tree to her memory, and there's a little plaque right beside it, or in front of it, that it's dedicated to the memory of Amy Lynn. And it's still growing today. It's a beautiful maple.
Oh yeah, so it's like a really tall tree now.
Yeah, it's a big tree now. When it was first planted, it was just a little taller than me. Now it's taller, right at the height of the school. It's a 2-story school, so it's right at that height. I'd say 35, 40 feet.
Did becoming a parent, I did kind of touch on this before, but did becoming a parent of a girl change the way you grieved over this whole thing?
I'd have to say yes, because I would absolutely devastate anybody that hurts my little girl. Like I said earlier, I probably wouldn't have been so hard on them if it hadn't happened. But having a little girl, she changed my world.
Yeah.
She did change my world. She made me smile. It's an amazing feeling having a beautiful little baby.
So that kind of that improved your life after so many years of suffering. That gave you a bright spot, so to speak.
Yeah, it was really enlightening.
Mm-hmm.
When it came time for her to have, the girly time of her life, that was awkward because Mom was at work and I had to deal with it. So that was a learning experience.
Oh, you mean like when she was a teenager?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When it came time for the girl thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like when was she boy crazy and all that?
Oh yeah, she was boy crazy for a little bit. Now she's into girls.
Oh, I see.
Go figure.
So are you still with her mother?
No, we've been separated for almost 15 years now.
Oh, I see. And so when you broached the subject of what happened to Amy with her, I don't know if were you guys married?
No, we weren't married, but common law.
Oh yeah.
In Texas, it's common law.
And did you explain what happened to Amy and basically convey to her that it changed you, it impacted you, and you kind of wrestle with it each day?
It was really just already understood because we always talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
She knew from childhood that Daddy has problems every year, and certain times of the year is harder than others. So she already understood. She grew up knowing that happened.
And I'm wondering, so you mentioned your brother has a hard time getting close to people. He has a hard time trusting people. So did you struggle with that too?
I've always been outgoing.
Mm-hmm.
That has never changed. I'm still outgoing. I'm one of the most outgoing people I've ever known. I have no problem talking to people. I do have problems trusting people, but I have no problem talking to people. That's why I'm doing this interview right now, because I'm able to talk about it. It's hard, but I'm able to talk about it.
Well, considering that the guy smiled at you in court, obviously, if the family's just going to keep suffering, then it's like he gets what he wants. You know what I mean? And you don't want to give him that.
No, he's not going to get that satisfaction from me or my parents. I would like to say he's not going to get it from my little brother, but that's just because he's in a drug-infused world that he don't deal with pain. I don't think he's ever going to get over it.
How old is your brother?
I think he just turned 40.
40. Yeah, I guess at that point, yeah, it's unlikely to happen, I suppose. Did he ever go to therapy?
We went to therapy every week for 7 years, and then he had to go every week for another 2 years. I was like a once a month, just to kind of check on me, see how I was doing. But yeah, he was in therapy a lot more than I was, and as far as I know, he never did open up and let the pain out. I think he still lives with it every day, and that's sad.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Was he ever?
I haven't been able to forgive him, but I have tried to not think about it as much.
Was anyone ever suicidal as a result of this?
No. I think the closest any of us ever got to suicide on the matter was me with my alcoholism. One September, I was having a hard time a few years back, and I decided I was going to crawl into a bottle and not come out. and as a result, I got pancreatitis. So I was hospitalized for about 3 weeks till they nurse me back to health. And I decided then I was going to start trying to not drink like that. So as far as for suicide, no, I'm the closest one. Mom and Dad, you know, they move forward. They're always moving forward. My little brother probably, I don't think he'll ever commit suicide, but eventually the drugs are going to get a hold of him and take him down.
Did he end up having kids of his own?
No, he refuses to have kids. He does not want to feel any pain like that.
Well, I mean, if a similar thing...
He said when we were kids, I'm never going to have kids. I never wanted to go through that. And I tried to tell him, you know, you got to live. You have to experience life to find out where you're going to be. That's why I had kids. Because I wanted the experience of children running around, laughing, screaming, playing, fighting. I wanted that experience.
Yeah.
But he doesn't.
Yeah, I guess he's worried if it had something like that happened again, I guess he'd feel like that would just be too much, that he couldn't deal with it.
And it probably would lead him to suicide.
Was there ever, you know, we human beings, we have a tendency to compare ourselves to others. Did you ever find yourself in situations where you saw someone had a great sister, someone who was a lot like Amy Lynn, and that would lead to you thinking, my sister's gone? And did that ever kind of lead to more suffering? Did that ever happen?
No, not really. As a matter of fact, I loved every one of my friends and all their sisters. I was jealous a couple of times, but only because I didn't have my sister to brag on.
Yeah.
I had a wonderful sister, and I don't know that any of my friends ever had sisters that were anything like her, but in their own aspects, they were always cool, always good to know.
And so that amendment that was made to the Texas Constitution, so you were not there for that, right, when they signed it into law, or were you?
I think I was there, but because I was so young, I don't remember all the details of everything that was going on.
Was that ever captured on video or anything?
I do remember a lot of clapping when that got signed. There was a lot of clapping.
And
a lot of people happy about that.
Are you aware of anyone being? I'm just going to read the thing here for a second. So, have you ever heard of judges denying bail to people charged with these offenses because of that?
No, no, I haven't. But I'm pretty sure there has been cases where they said no, they can't have bail. It wouldn't surprise me. Given that option, I'm sure there's a lot of judges that would just go ahead and take that into their right.
Yeah, and it seems like, you know, the fact that so many young girls are spared from that experience because of that law, it seems like, taking into consideration what kind of person she was, that would be an appropriate legacy, is it not?
Yes. I'm glad that the Texas judicial system finally decided to acknowledge that things needed to change. If you're a bad person, you're a bad person. You're never going to change. And that's all there is to it. I mean, I know bad people that do bad things. I don't associate myself with them, but I know them. And they're going to get theirs one day.
And out of all the tributes that were made at the funeral and the memorial service, and I know that a lot of that's probably a blur for you, but Was there anything that anyone said that stood out that you felt like this defines her better than anything else? Anything anyone else said?
No, I was too young, and I was so emotionally shocked. I really, honestly, I blocked out most of my childhood.
Yeah, from that point onwards, you.
No, from childhood on.
Really?
Early childhood. Yeah, I blocked out a lot of memories, but they are coming back. I do remember a lot of good times that my sister and I had had. Wow.
How old were you, by the way, when it happened?
I was 11.
11, yeah.
Yeah, I was still just a baby. My little brother was 9, so you can imagine what that did.
Yeah.
That is part of the reason why he's so messed up now. It really messed him up. It messed him up pretty bad.
And I'm wondering, was there, sometimes when people lose someone that early in life, they end up compensating for it. Like a lot of people who grew up without a mother or father, they try to find that kind of role. They try to find somebody to play that role in their life. Did it affect your relationships with women, and did it affect your brother's relationship with women at all?
I can't really speak for my little brother because, I'm not in his head. But as far as for me, I find it challenging to make new relationships with women. I'm pretty open. I'm pretty honest. Really, most folks, most of the people I know don't even know about my older sister.
Oh, yeah.
As my point in case, my boss saw the tattoos that I have on my shoulders, and he asked me about them. The tattoos are the date of birth of my sister and the day she was murdered. And then I told him, and he didn't know. He didn't know, so he went and he looked it up online, and he came back to me because he's a church-going man, and we sat and talked and prayed, and I don't know, I probably got off track there.
No, that's all right. Did you ever feel like on an unconscious level maybe that you chose women that were a lot like Amy? Like maybe you were trying to replace her?
Not replace her, just find somebody like her. Every woman I've ever dated has always been a strong, caring, open, honest person. She did set standards high for women.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I don't date sissy la girls. I can only date a girl that can take care of herself.
Yeah, so she set that standard then.
Yeah, she set the standard for women in my life. They have to be able to take care of themselves. And I'm not going to be the one that takes care of them. They're going to have to take care of themselves.
Yeah, I can see that. That's for sure. And all right. Well, I thank you so much for sharing all this. I know that it's not easy. It'll never be easy. Not for you, not for your brother, not for your parents. It was a horrific tragedy, and the perpetrator couldn't have possibly chosen a less appropriate. Not that anyone deserves it, but they couldn't have possibly chosen a less appropriate victim. And she certainly didn't do anything to earn what happened to her. And I'm sorry for your loss, and my thoughts are with you and the rest of your family, and I'm glad that change was made to the Texas Penal Code to protect other young women from suffering that same fate.
I thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining me, Damon.
All right.
Take care, man.
Have a good day, sir.
You too.
Bye.
All right, bye. Thank you for listening to Human Monsters. Bye for now.